the familiar scent of smoke and the eerie orange glow in the sky. These are the telltale signs of a crisis that has become all too common in California wildfires. On January 8, 2025, the Golden State found itself once again battling a fierce enemy, a series of devastating wildfires that ripped through its landscape. Fueled by strong winds and dry conditions, these infernos spread with terrifying speed, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. From the rugged Santa Monica Mountains to the suburban neighborhoods of Los Angeles County, the fires spared no one. The Palisades Fire, the Eaton Fire, the Hearst Fire, these names became synonymous with fear and uncertainty as they consumed thousands of acres, homes and businesses. Among the most destructive was the Eaton Fire, which tore through the communities of Altadena and Pasadena. This blaze alone scorched over 10,000 acres, making it the largest of the recent fires. Tragically, 5 lives were lost in the Eaton Fire, a stark reminder of the very real danger these wildfires pose. The firestorm's hunger for fuel seemed insatiable, leaving behind a path of charred earth and smoldering rubble. The air, thick with smoke and ash, became a suffocating blanket over the region, making it difficult to breathe and even harder to see. The scale of the destruction was immense, with reports estimating over 2,000 homes and businesses reduced to ashes. The impact extended far beyond the immediate burn areas. Over 100,000 people were forced to flee their homes, seeking refuge in shelters or with friends and family. The mass evacuations led to chaos and fear as residents grappled with the reality of leaving everything behind. Adding to the pandemonium, the fires crippled critical infrastructure. Southern California Edison, the region's primary power provider, reported widespread outages, leaving hundreds of thousands in the dark. Water pressure plummeted, hindering firefighting efforts that relied heavily on hydrants. In some areas, hydrants ran dry, leaving firefighters scrambling for alternative water sources. The situation was dire, and the response, many argued, was far from adequate. As the fires raged, questions arose about the role of government negligence in the disaster. Some pointed fingers at the Biden administration, accusing it of prioritizing international aid over domestic crises. The president's decision to approve $500 million in aid to Ukraine while California burned sparked outrage among those who felt their own government had abandoned them. The administration's response, while swift in some aspects, was seen by many as too little, too late. The California wildfires once again exposed the vulnerabilities of a state grappling with the increasing threat of climate change and the apparent inability of its leaders to adequately address the crisis. President Biden's decision to cancel his trip to Italy following the outbreak of the California wildfires was met with mixed reactions. While some saw it as a necessary gesture of solidarity with those affected by the disaster, others criticized it as mere optics, a way to deflect attention from his administration's perceived inaction. The president's approval of a major disaster declaration and a fire management assistance grant, while welcomed, did little to quell the growing criticism. Many argued that these actions, while standard procedure in such emergencies, lacked the urgency and commitment needed to effectively address the crisis. Fueling the firestorm of criticism was President Biden's demeanor during a press briefing on the wildfires. Critics seized on a moment when the president, while discussing the disaster, appeared more focused on becoming a grandfather. This perceived lack of empathy and focus during a time of national crisis further eroded public trust in his leadership. Adding insult to injury, the Biden administration's decision to prioritize international aid to Ukraine over domestic disaster relief rubbed salt into the wounds of those who felt abandoned by their own government. At the state level, Governor Newsom faced his own share of scrutiny. Despite declaring a state of emergency and deploying over 1,400 firefighters to combat the blazes, Newsom found himself on the receiving end of harsh criticism, particularly from his political opponents. President-elect Trump, never one to shy away from controversy, led the charge, accusing Newsom of gross mismanagement and prioritizing environmental concerns over fire prevention measures. Trump's supporters echoed these sentiments, claiming that Newsom's policies had exacerbated the wildfire risk and left the state woefully unprepared for the disaster. Adding fuel to the fire, Los Angeles Mayor Bass found herself at the center of a political maelstrom over her decision to slash the city's fire department budget. Critics argued that the $17.6 million cut, coupled with plans for further reductions, had crippled the city's ability to respond effectively to the wildfires. The mayor's assurances that the cuts would not impact firefighting capabilities rang hollow as residents watched their homes and businesses go up in flames. The California wildfires, once again, exposed the deep political divisions within the country and the growing distrust in the government's ability to protect its citizens from increasingly frequent and devastating natural disasters.